Hello and welcome to the Healthy Stuff Advisory Board. Today is the 7th of February. I'm Michelle Wakefield. I'm the Laboratory and Compliance Director at Healthy Stuff. I've been here since September last year. We've also got Kate Knowler. Kate is a highly respected nutritionist, phlebotomist and author. She has extensive knowledge and training in nutrition and the connection between food and the body. And today Kate's going to be discussing thyroid dysfunction. We also have Dr. Kristen Poe. Dr. Poe is a functional medicine practitioner and has provided lots of online content for us here at Healthy Stuff. Dr. Poe is a naturopathic doctor with a PhD in alternative medicine and a postgraduate diploma in holistic health. Today, Dr. Poe is going to be talking about the gut biome and digestive health. We also have Dr. Joseph Nightingale, MBBS, who is a qualified doctor. He has a master's degree in biodiversity, ecology and ecosystems, and also is a top science writer. Today, Dr. Nightingale will be discussing vitamin D deficiency. Just a little introduction to Healthy Stuff. We formed back in 2008 and we were incorporated just over 10 years ago. We offer a whole host of health and wellbeing products, both online and through third-party retailers, including allergy and intolerance testing, home health kits, and sensitivity tests. We're offered throughout the world, and we're hoping to bring some new products to market this year. So over to you, Kate.
Thank you. So I'm going to be talking about thyroid dysfunction today, what the thyroid is, what the thyroid does, and how we can test the thyroid. Okay, if we go on to the next slide, fantastic. So just some stats here. So this was the, I think it's the Aberdeen Business School did a questionnaire last year, so it's 2023, and the statistics that came out of that questionnaire were quite shocking, really. 1 in 20 people in the UK have a thyroid condition, and women in the UK are 6 times more likely to experience thyroid dysfunction. And of the people who have thyroid dysfunction, men or women or children can have it as well, 92% who were given medications such as levothyroxine were still experiencing some level of symptoms. Maybe not as bad as their symptoms were, but they weren't feeling back to 100%. So there is an extensive list of the symptoms associated with thyroid dysfunction, which I'll talk you through now. Thank you. We'll come to the symptoms in a second. The thyroid is a gland in the neck. It produces the thyroid hormones. So T4 and T3 are the most common hormones that we might think about. T2, T1, calcitonin, they're also hormones produced by the thyroid. And these are all produced in response to TSH stimulation. So thyroid stimulating hormone produced by the pituitary gland encourages the thyroid to produce these thyroid hormones. The hormones are required in every single cell of the body for metabolism. And now we'll get onto the list of symptoms. So the symptoms here are straight from the NHS website. These are not any of those 92% of people still experiencing symptoms reporting random symptoms. This is straight from the NHS website. This is the symptoms associated with hypothyroid, so underactive thyroid, so things such as being low, slow, so tired, cold, just things aren't quite right. And then on the opposite side, the overactive or the hyperthyroid, where things are just a bit faster, a little bit over or a little bit hyper. So maybe can't sit still, maybe sweatier than other people, but actually that can also lead to being fatigued as well. So initially they might have a lot of energy if they have hypothyroid, and then coming down into having no energy at all because they're just a bit burnt out. So absolutely, like, we have all these symptoms, but why does the thyroid go wrong? Why does it go wrong for so many people? It's what we're going to cover on the next slide. So some of the main reasons would be stress. So stress can be work stress, it can be life stress, it can be looking after your elderly parent stress, it can be you spoke to your nutritional therapist and she told you to cook everything from scratch for the next 6 weeks, and suddenly you're overwhelmed with how you're going to cook everything from scratch and still manage to get to work on time and still get the kids to school on time. This is stressful. It's going to the gym if you don't really enjoy it kind of stress. These are stresses that your body doesn't need, and we need to find ways to, we can't get away from a lot of them. We can't get away from working. We can't get away from having children, elderly parents, these things. We just have to find ways of managing them better. We can have nutrient deficiencies. So some of the common nutrient deficiencies that can affect thyroid dysfunction include iodine, iron, protein, selenium, zinc, and glutathione. So these are found in the diet. If they're not in the diet in adequate amounts, the thyroid can start to fall over. And I always describe the thyroid as the racing car of the body. It's one of the most sensitive parts of the body. It needs a perfect environment in order to function perfectly. As soon as something starts to leave the environment, the thyroid will just slowly but surely start to go a bit wrong. So the racing car of the body is how I describe it. And then goitrogens. So goitrogens are found in the diet. They are healthy. We should still eat them, even if we have a thyroid issue, but we should eat them mindfully. So raw cruciferous veggies, so things like kale and broccoli, we should eat these cooked. Soya and millet, we should obviously avoid them raw. We don't want to eat them raw, but eat them in moderate amounts, because these three types of goitrogens, so raw cruciferous veg, soya and millet, these inhibit the thyroid peroxidase enzyme and prevent the thyroid being able to make its thyroid hormones. Cassava, sweet potato and sorghum, these inhibit the uptake of iodine by the thyroid, which would then prevent more thyroid hormones being get my words there. These would inhibit the uptake of iodine, preventing the thyroid being able to make thyroid hormones. So it's important that we have goitrogens, but in moderate amounts, and we avoid them raw. Okay, so let's have a look at the next page. So what else could cause thyroid dysfunction? Well, you could have a genetic issue preventing your ability to form T4 or convert your T4 to T3. T3 is the active thyroid hormone, T4 is the inactive thyroid hormone, and we want to convert to T3 because that's where our active thyroid hormone is, and that's the one that the cells are using. If we're not able to convert from a genetic perspective, then no matter how much diet you throw at this, it's always going to be a problem. You could have an autoimmune condition where antibodies are attacking the thyroid peroxidase enzyme or the thyroid tissues themselves. Gluten consumption, so molecules of gluten look very similar to thyroid tissue, so molecules of thyroid tissue, and so something called molecular mimicry when there's intestinal hyperpermeability. So gluten's getting out of the intestines into the bloodstream. Antibodies are being formed that attack the gluten, but also because the gluten looks a bit like the thyroid tissue, those antibodies may go and attack the thyroid tissue as well. So gluten consumption is another thing we might want to think about avoiding. Pregnancy can cause thyroid dysfunction because there's just that increased demand on the thyroid, and it can trigger some immune function as well, so leading to the autoimmune side of things. Viral infections can cause a temporary thyroid dysfunction, normally lasts between 2 and 18 months. Some people, I think it's about 5% of people, need medicating after a viral or subacute thyroiditis, but the majority of people will recover on their own. Liver health, we convert 80% of our thyroid hormones in the liver. So our T4 converting to T3, so that inactive thyroid hormone converting to the active thyroid hormone, 80% of that happens in the liver. So if there's anything like fatty liver disease, if the client or if you are on medications or if you're taking recreational drugs, too much alcohol, this may be affecting your liver function and would reduce your ability to convert T4 to the active T3. And then digestive health, this is where we convert the rest of our T4 to T3. So if there's any kind of bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, parasites, and I think Dr. Poe is going to cover this shortly, but anything going on in the digestive system will reduce your ability to convert T4 to T3. Okay. So these are some of the blood markers that we talk about when we are looking at thyroid function. So TSH, your thyroid stimulating hormone, this is the pituitary gland speaking to the thyroid and saying, okay, thyroid, produce me some thyroid hormones. In response to TSH, the thyroid will produce free T4 and a small amount of free T3. It also does T2, T1, and calcitonin. So with those thyroid hormones, it produces them. And there's a feedback mechanism. So if the thyroid hormones are going high, then there'll be a feedback mechanism to reduce the production of those hormones. If they're going low, there'll be a feedback mechanism to produce more hormones. So it's all very tightly controlled, assuming all the cofactors, all the root ingredients are there for the thyroid hormones. And that's where we were talking about the nutrient deficiencies, things like iodine, protein, iron. These are needed to form thyroid hormones. Selenium, glutathione, zinc, these are needed for the conversion of T4 to T3. The antibodies, TPO and TG, these are the antibodies that attack either the thyroid peroxidase enzyme or the actual thyroid tissue themselves. And then reverse T3 is a storage form of free T3. So free T3, active and available for use in the body. Reverse T3 is active but unavailable for use. And stress can cause this to happen, or excessive fasting, illness. There are lots of reasons why reverse T3 might be raised. So in looking at testing thyroid function, you can start with a finger prick test. Healthy Stuff, we have one here. It's a very simple finger prick, 2 spots of blood on the test cassette, and then add the, you can see here the white bottle of solution, and then wait to see if your TSH is abnormal. If you've done that test and it's shown that there's an abnormality in your TSH, you should speak to your GP and get that looked into. If you've had a test done with your GP and your TSH is coming back abnormal from a venous blood draw, then further investigation is going to be required. That might involve referring you to an endocrinologist. It might involve more blood testing. It might involve medication. But all the way through, I would say if you're having medication for your thyroid and you don't feel 100%, seek extra help. Seek the help of a nutritional therapist who can help you to just modify your diet to be optimal for your thyroid. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. That was a really interesting talk. It'd be interesting for our viewers to see how many different things the thyroid can affect. On to you, Dr. Poe.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So happy to be here today, and I'm going to be touching on a topic that is just a very hot topic now, and that is gut health. I don't think we can do much with health and wellness these days without hearing about gut health and the role it plays in overall health and wellness, and that is honestly the truth. The gut really is the gatekeeper in the body. So I'm going to talk about how the gut biome and digestive health and metabolic parameters really can affect our overall health and wellness and how we need it to be in check. Next slide. So as I said, it's a hot topic, and I would say it is the main reason that I have people consulting my office. I mean, they consult for so many different things, but I would say gut health is one of the top things with unpleasant digestive symptoms, as you can see here: bloating, constipation, diarrhea, heartburn, and other things. And most of the time, these have been long-term chronic symptoms that people have been to their, primary care providers, specialists. They've had lab work and testing done, only to be told that either, you might have IBS or you might have GERD, or consequently, the more common thing that I hear is all your lab work, all your testing is normal. Call us back if it gets worse. Have a nice day. And they're kind of left feeling hopeless and kind of beat down, accepting that sort of as their long-term baseline. Other sides of it are they come in with all these food intolerances. They've been allergy tested. Again, everything's coming back normal, and they're left with a diet of a total of 10 things because all these other things aggravate them when they eat it. Next slide. So as I said before, research shows a direct correlation between the immune system and the gut. More than 70 to 80% of the immune cells are present in the gut. Our gut is lined with these little patches of lymph tissue called Peyer's patches, and a large part of our immune system is held there, which is why it has such a big impact on the body. And huge universities such as Harvard University here in Boston are actually looking at the gut biome and the gut as an additional organ system, just because it has such a tremendous impact on the body. As Kate said before, hormonally, neurotransmitters, immunity, it really impacts everything. So it's really important to ensure that we look at multiple aspects of the gut, one being the microbiome, of course, which is very unique and specific. It's like a fingerprint. We all have our own microbiome that need a different balance of both good and bad bacteria. And of course, it's influenced by diet and nutrition, genetics, environment, medications, alcohol intake. Our gut is really impacted by all of these lifestyle things as well. Next slide. So, food intolerances. Yes, so many people fall into that category of having food intolerances. They've been allergy tested and nothing really specific comes up, but they've recognized that when they eat dairy or they eat gluten or other things that, they get unpleasant symptoms. So like I said before, they're left with this very kind of limited diet that's really kind of disheartening, and they can't go out to dinner and have fun, or they can't go to someone's house without worrying about that their stomach is going to act up or something else unpleasant is going to happen. So what I have found is that a lot of times food intolerances are as a result of imbalances in the gut, whether it's the microbiome or the pH or other digestive parameters. Really, the food intolerance symptom is kind of the end result of the gut being completely out of whack. Next slide. Next slide. Did I lose you? I think I froze here. Yeah, I'm frozen. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I froze. I had like a 2-minute lag. So I wanted to address that an invaluable health and wellness tool that I use so often in my practice is the intolerance and sensitivity testing that we have here. But the gut biome and digestive health sections of this sensitivity plus test is so crucial because it doesn't just tell our patients like, oh, you should take a probiotic. It will actually get down into the actual strands that are recommended. So it really gives that concierge and personalized approach to their microbiome. And it gives us a clue as to which strands of probiotic bacteria or prebiotics we should recommend to them that are specific to them. Because what happens is a lot of times people are taking probiotics and they don't end up being the correct or compatible strand for their body. So they're still symptomatic because they're overpopulating in one bacteria, but they're still deficient in another. So this gives us such a good map as to which strands of probiotic or prebiotic bacteria we should recommend to them. Next slide. And then the other section is the digestive health and metabolism section, which again will look at different digestive enzymes. It'll look at hydrochloric acid for pH balance, calprotectin, bile salts, all of these factors sometimes that if they're off, they can cause significant GI upset and other symptoms in the body that sometimes will look like other things like IBS or GERD or even sorry, I lost my words here, food intolerances, they will present as those things. So before even addressing, anything else, I think it is super important to get the gut in check from a microbiome, digestive, and pH standpoint. And this test is very, very crucial in doing that.
Thanks so much.
You're very welcome.
Really interesting. Right, on to Dr. Joseph Nightingale now for vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Joe Nightingale, a doctor and writer here at Healthy Stuff. So one of the biggest concerns during the winter months is vitamin D deficiency. According to the UK government, around 1 in 6 adults have low vitamin D levels, and that's around 20% of children. Now in children, this can lead to debilitating conditions like rickets, while for those who are housebound and people from Black and South Asian communities, it's a significant risk that goes severely underdiagnosed. In fact, as one epidemiological survey of almost 500,000 people showed, vitamin D deficiency can rise as high as 53.7% in Asian communities and 34.9% among Black populations. So that's quite significant. In fact, one of the survey's authors branded the results as very alarming. But what is vitamin D deficiency? What are the signs and symptoms? And what can we do to diagnose and manage this nutritional disorder? Let's find out. So just on to the next slide, thanks. So vitamin D is often dubbed the sunshine vitamin. It's unique because it's one of the few vitamins our body can produce on its own, but only when our skin is exposed to sunlight. So specifically, UVB rays from the sun interact with a cholesterol compound in our skin, and that kickstarts the synthesis of vitamin D. Now, this remarkable vitamin is fat soluble, and that means it can be stored in the body's fatty tissues and the liver for later use. Its main role to facilitate the absorption of calcium and phosphorus from our diet. Now, these two minerals are absolutely essential for maintaining healthy bones and teeth. But vitamin D doesn't stop there. It's also a key player in supporting our immune system, muscle function, cardiovascular health. It even plays a part in regulating mood and warding off depression. It's often one of the reasons why people tend to feel a little low in the winter months. However, despite its importance, vitamin D is naturally present in very few foods. And this scarcity in our diet, combined with limited sun exposure, especially in colder climates like the UK, means getting enough vitamin D can be a challenge. Now, this challenge brings us to the question of what happens when we don't get enough of this essential nutrient. So moving on to the darker side of things, let's explore the health risks associated with vitamin D deficiency. Now, as it turns out, not getting enough vitamin D can lead to more than just a bad mood on a cloudy day. In the short term, deficiency can manifest as fatigue, bone pain, muscle weakness, or muscle aches and cramps. And now these symptoms might sound minor, but they can significantly impact daily life and overall well-being. Now, in the long term, the stakes are much higher. Persistent vitamin D deficiency can lead to serious bone disorders, such as rickets in children, a condition that causes bone softening and skeletal deformities. It was pretty much eradicated in most of the Western world. However, the prevalence of children spending longer inside playing video games has led to a resurgence in recent years. In adults, it can result in a condition known as osteomalacia. That means sort of bone softening. And then if that continues to progress, you may get osteoporosis, and that's characterized by weak and brittle bones. But the impact of vitamin D deficiency doesn't end with the bones. Research suggests it's also linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular diseases, autoimmune diseases, infection, and even certain cancers. For instance, low vitamin D levels have been associated with higher risk of developing conditions like multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, and some forms of cancer, including breast and colon cancer. Moreover, vitamin D plays a crucial role in regulating the immune system and inflammation. A deficiency can weaken the immune system, making it more difficult for the body to fight off viruses and bacteria. This is particularly concerning, especially in the winter months, as seasonal flus and other respiratory infections are normally pretty common. So just on to the next slide, thanks. So far, so bad. But how do we avoid developing a vitamin D deficiency in the first place? So according to the national guidelines set out by NICE, now that's a public body that publishes national guidance and advice, vitamin D deficiency is defined quite clearly. It's blood levels below 25 nanomoles per milliliter, that's a true deficiency, and levels between 25 to 50 nanomoles per milliliter are considered insufficient. Now, these numbers are not just statistics, they are critical markers of our health. To avoid reaching these levels, most adults should obtain 1,500 to 2,000 international units of vitamin D daily. Obviously, most of that will come from sun exposure. Now, people in the UK, particularly with pale or white skin, are less at risk of developing vitamin D deficiency. However, several groups are considered at risk. These include people aged 65 or over, people who have a low exposure to the sun or darker skin pigmentation, people with malabsorption disorders or with severe liver and kidney disease, pregnant people, and people who are obese. Regardless, taking a vitamin D test is the surest way to detect a deficiency, especially if you could be one of the 1/3 of people who could be deficient. So when it comes to vitamin D deficiency, the signs and symptoms can be as varied as the individuals who experience them. So let's break down this deficiency and how it can present across different life stages. Now, children tend to experience problems with growth or motor development. Deformities in bones, such as bowed legs or curved spine, are characteristic, as are dental issues, such as delayed tooth formation and higher cavity rates. Adolescents, meanwhile, experience similar symptoms to adults. Muscle pain and weakness are common, as is fatigue and difficulty concentrating. Mood changes are also a subtle symptom, although, as most parents can attest, discerning irritability in a grumpy teenager can be quite challenging. Finally, adults can experience no symptoms at all. However, as the deficiency becomes more severe, bone pain, muscle weakness, low mood and cardiovascular issues will become apparent. Just onto the next slide, thanks. So the primary cause behind vitamin D deficiency is either prolonged limited sunlight exposure or age and skin pigmentation. Now, these intractable factors contribute to the majority of cases in the UK. However, other conditions like celiac disease, Crohn's disease and cystic fibrosis can severely impair the body's ability to absorb vitamin D from the foods we consume. In the most severe long-term cases, several factors may work together to prevent normal vitamin D levels becoming established. Now, this isn't something to be ignored. The health implications of long-term vitamin D deficiency are profound and far-reaching. Bone health is significantly impacted. As we've mentioned, there's an increase of osteoporosis in older people, rickets in children, and bone fractures across all ages. This deficiency doesn't just weaken bones, it leads to muscle weakness as well. And this in turn can cause falls and impaired mobility, especially in the elderly populations. But the effects extend beyond the musculoskeletal system. Vitamin D, as we've mentioned, is critical in the immune system, and its deficiency can heighten susceptibility to infections and autoimmune diseases. The cardiovascular system is not spared either, with associations drawn between vitamin D deficiency, high blood pressure, and heart disease. And lastly, the impact on mental health cannot be overlooked. There are clear links between vitamin D deficiency, depression, and cognitive decline, highlighting the vitamin's importance in brain health. Thanks. So diagnosing vitamin D deficiency is critical to preventing these long-term health implications. The diagnosis primarily involves a simple blood test to measure the levels of 25-hydroxy vitamin D, and that's considered the most accurate marker of vitamin D status in the body. Now, Healthy Stuff, one of our companies called Test Your Intolerance, offers a vitamin D test. It's simple and straightforward and provides results within less than an hour. You'll receive your kit within 2 to 3 days, and all you'll need is a fingerprint of blood. Now, we recommend performing a vitamin D test if you've got symptoms, if you have any of the risk factors listed earlier, or if you've simply not conducted a test in a long time. Remember, regular screening helps prevent serious complications. However, if your symptoms are particularly severe, a DEXA bone scan is required to assess bone density levels, and that can find out if you've got a condition like osteomalacia or if it's severe enough to be osteoporosis. Just on to the next slide, thanks. So finally, what can you do to reverse a vitamin D deficiency if you get a positive test? So management involves more than just getting sunlight exposure. It can also involve changing your diet and, of course, vitamin D supplementation. So incorporate foods rich in vitamin D into your diet, such as fatty fish, egg yolks, fortified foods and mushrooms. Sensible sun exposure, about 10 to 30 minutes, several times a week, depending on skin tone and geographical location, can significantly boost vitamin D levels. However, for many, probably most people, supplementation is necessary to reach adequate levels, particularly if you're high risk or you've got a confirmed deficiency. Now, if you've got one of the risk factors, NICE suggests taking 400 international units of vitamin D every day to supplement your sunlight exposure and what you'll get for your diet. However, in the autumn and winter months, it's probably best for most people to take some form of vitamin D supplementation. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to get tested.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for your input today. It was really interesting and informative. And it was sure to be a help to those who are watching. If anybody has any questions, if you're watching, please feel free to email me at michelle@healthystuff.com. Our next advisory board will be in approximately 3 months' time, where we'll be sure to take on some different topics relating to your health and wellness. Thank you very much.